guys, it's Imak here. I'm very excited today because we're about to build a real-time OCR web application using cutting-edge technologies and microservice architecture. So we'll be using React for our front end, we'll be using Node.js and Python for our back end in conjunction with API Gateway, Lambda function, S3, IAM, a bunch of services in AWS. This is going to be hands-on, zero to hero, building an application from scratch and deploying it to production. So I'll be showing you how to upload a document. It can be an invoice that contains a bunch of information. We'll be extracting all the information on the fly and we'll be returning it to our React application. So optical character recognition, I'm sure you've seen a lot of those applications, but I'm going to walk you through all the steps and all the things that you need to know to build such an application. This is a very, very exciting experience for me, and I hope you guys like it. But before we actually start building this application, I want to show you the functionality and the final result so you guys have a very, very clear understanding about the project that we're about to start. Again, it's a very exciting journey. I cannot wait to start this project. Without further ado, let's get started. All right, guys, this is our application. We are going to build this page from scratch, but I would just want to show you how this application works. We have a web page and we're going to actually upload an image. I have downloaded a bunch of invoices from internet. You can just choose any document. We're going to upload them to this application, and hopefully this application, it's going to convert them on the fly. It's going to do its magic, which is an OCR, optical character recognition, and extract invoice number, amount, and date from an invoice. So let's just upload one test invoice and to see how this application works. Great, it says analyzing, please wait. And as you can see on the fly, we were able to basically upload this file to Amazon S3, run it through an OCR machine so we can save this data for our invoice to DynamoDB. And it returned the value as a JSON object to our React application, and we binded all these values to the HTML form. And at the end, of course, we're going to submit this invoice to our database. I want to walk you through the architecture and the big picture so you guys have a great understanding about the entire project. So let's do that. From our React application, we'll be issuing 3 API calls. We're going to use asynchronous call to basically send our image in base64 format to a RESTful API. We'll be making a call to an OCR, and of course, we'll send the data at the end to DynamoDB. So those are the 3 API calls that we're going to build. So we're going to hit AWS API Gateway, which is going to be basically a gateway, an entrance where you can basically send your requests. And it's going to be a RESTful API. I'm going to walk you through all the steps, how to build and connect it to Lambda, and how to process this request from a client. So RESTful API, again, it's AWS managed service, which is great. It scales automatically. You don't have to be worried about underlying technology, patching the operating system, making sure it's highly available, and all those overheads. Amazon is going to take care of all those issues for you. So up to here, Amazon S3 is playing a big role here by serving our application. And of course, on the backend side, the entry point of all the requests will be API Gateway. So API Gateway, based on the REST resource, or basically based on the URL that we're going to hit, it's going to redirect our request to one of these microservices that are going to be a Lambda function. We'll be building basically our image uploader using Node.js. We'll upload those invoices to Amazon S3. We'll be also using Node.js to insert and read data to DynamoDB, to interact with DynamoDB. We're going to use Python in conjunction with AWS Textract to basically build that OCR, optical character recognition functionality in our application. This is going to be very, very fun, from zero to hero, from architecture to actually implementing a real life project. So without further ado, let's start coding. All right, guys, the first thing that we need is going to be Visual Studio Code. We'll be developing our application in this environment. So there are 2 basically plugins that I want you to install prettier to basically have a nice and cleaner
code in your application. And I'm going to show you which one. There it is. You just need to go to extension and install this guy. And the other one that we need to install is React, basically snippet tool that it's going to help us, basically provide all the boilerplate code that we need to use in our application. This will be basically providing all these, shortcuts for us so we can actually start focusing on our application. All right. So you will need an AWS account in order to finish this tutorial, and we'll be using Amazon S3 for our storage service, and also we'll be serving the application as I mentioned in the introduction and architectural review. We'll be using that to serve our application. So our React application eventually will be uploaded to an S3 bucket, and we'll set up the policies and access control so we can serve the application to our end users. And then our application will be contacting API gateway, and we'll talk to our OCR and DynamoDB and S3 through Lambda functions that we'll be developing using different technologies, NodeJS, Python, right? All right, so before we actually start doing all these technologies, we need to have two things set up in our environment. So the first thing was Visual Studio Code that you guys installed all these components, and we'll be basically starting by running our npm. If you don't have npm or Node.js installed on your machine, please Google Node.js and go to the website and download and install it on your machine. There's one more piece that you need to configure. All right, so you can just go to AWS configure. I'm just going to configure this once more so you guys see how this works. So it's going to ask me to provide that value. I'm going to paste this, and also I'm going to use this one in order to complete this AWS configure process. I'm not worried about hiding these values because I'm going to remove them, and this is a test account. So don't copy mine. Please find yours from your account and add it to your AWS configure. So I'm going to keep the default region as US West 1 and default option format, which is JSON. I'm just going to keep it simple, and I'm going to clear the screen. Now I should be able to access my S3 using this new generated key value. Perfect. All right, guys, now we are ready to start our React application. What we're going to do, we're going to start with npm install-globally create React app command. And once this is done, we're going to install our React application. So the next command is going to be create. It's going to be create React app, and I'm going to name this app. So I'm going to pause the video and wait for this process to be done. I'm going to go ahead and start the application by using this command npm space start. So in this application, as you can see, we have public and src folder. Public folder is basically the entry point of our application, and if you go down in this page, you will see a division called root, and this is basically the place that we're going to load our React application. In src folder, you do have an index.js, which is the entry point of your React application. And as you can see, we're going to import and do a bunch of things. And at the end of the day, we're going to create a module in React application, in this scenario called app. And we're going to replace this using pure JavaScript command with the root division. So this is how every single React application works. You create different modules, small modules. They do one thing, but one thing really well. And you can kind of reuse them everywhere in your application. App module basically eventually will be replaced with the content of the division we're using this pure JavaScript command. We build different modules, small components in React applications so we can reuse them and we can debug them and test them and scale them very easily. So remember, the entire point of creating these modules is to create a loosely coupled smaller components, but we can put them together and build a real life application. So in this scenario, as you can see, we are importing the module called app, and here we are rendering this module into the page. So it's a very easy concept to understand. As you can see now, here is our React application. By default, when we started this application, it created that page for us. We're going to start modifying this application, but before we actually do that, I'm going to pause this application and I'm going to go back. And what we're going to do here, we're going to install a bunch of modules to basically improve our application. We're going to use those along the way throughout our development cycle. But before you do that, make sure first of all you navigate to that app folder, because if you start installing all these modules outside of that folder, they will not work. So make sure you are in the app directory while you're installing these components. We're going to go back. We're going to start with React Strap, which is a bootstrap component for React. We're going to go ahead and install that module. The next module we're going to install is called .env. .env, you will see when we include our URL endpoint where we're going to actually initiate our async calls, we're going to use URLs, right? And you don't want to expose these URLs to your end users, whoever's looking at the source code. So what we're going to do, we're going to put those in a config file, and we're going to load them like environment variables. So this is how you basically load your secrets into the application. What you're going to do in real life application, you have process env cdb host. This is an example, but you can put this value in a hidden file somewhere in your code. So what we're going to do, we're going to use this in real life application. Hopefully we get a chance to use it in this tutorial, but remember, for real life application, you always want to load components using environment variables. So I will pause the installation process, and we'll pick it up as soon as the installation is done. All right, we're going to install .env, which is going to help us read values through environment variables. Our next component will be base64-image, which is going to help us to convert our images that we're going to upload to this application to format base64, and we're going to pass them to API Gateway, and API Gateway will convert those base64 codes to an actual image in S3 bucket. We'll see how exactly this is going to work. I'm going to install this module as well. All right, our next module is going to be Font Awesome. You can just simply go to their GitHub repository, and if you scroll down, you will see an installation, npm installation. Basically, we're going to use Font Awesome to create nice icons and nice font. So let's go ahead and install that module as well. All right, and the next module we're going to install, called the Moment. Moment basically will help you to work with date and time. It provides all the things that you need to work with date and time in this module. So the good thing about React, if you pay attention, is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can simply go ahead and use the components that other people are using, and this is the beauty. You can just focus on your real life application, on things that you want to build, instead of spending time building components or working with like date time libraries and things like that. So it's a great way of achieving a lot, in short amount of time, because we're going to use other people's library as well to help us achieve our goals. We're going to go ahead and install Moment as well. The last part about our React setup, I want to mention one thing. The folder called node_module. This is a very big folder as you start building new components and adding more modules to your application. This is basically all the libraries or all the codes that we are going to use from other basically developers, other teams in our application. You don't have to submit this code to your code repository if you're using GitHub or AWS Code Commit or any other version control system, because it's going to take a lot of space. So what you want to do always in your git ignore file, make sure this node module is always there, so you don't basically submit this to your repository. Whoever is downloading your application can simply go to this basically a JSON file and see all the modules that you're using in your application, and they can simply use the command npm install to install all those modules that we are using in our application. So this was the last piece that I wanted to mention in real life work in companies. If you're doing React applications, we always want to make sure node underscore module folder is excluded from your basically repository. All right, for bucket policies, we have two control for public access, which we can set up. One is as account level, which is our, as you can see, it says off. So we basically uncheck the block all public access key at the account level, so we can monitor we can basically set up our access key at the bucket level, not at the account level. So let's go ahead and create a, for example, new bucket. I'm gonna name this bucket. I'm gonna serve this application. I'm gonna call it React Accounts Payable Web App, right? And then I'm gonna go ahead to, I'm gonna select, for example, Northern California region, and we're gonna move next. And I'm just gonna keep the default, no versioning. I'm gonna uncheck the block all public access for now, and I'm going to tell you why, and we're going to create this bucket. So once the bucket is created, this is the bucket that we'll be serving our basically application from. Our React application eventually will be served from this bucket, and I'll show you how to set it up shortly. And we're going to have another basically folder called React AP Web App Images. And the images, I'm going to keep that in Northern Virginia to make it simple for accessing the OCR to this bucket for just simplicity for now, because in Northern Virginia, the AWS Textract, I know for sure is active, not in California region. So hopefully in the future, AWS will add that. So we're going to go next, and for now, I'm just gonna uncheck all these public access for training purposes. Later, you can just restrict all these accesses to these buckets. So what we need to do for now, we need to go ahead and set a few permissions on our application. And one of them, it's going to be basically setting up that folder that we set up for images. We're going to start with that, and then we're going to set up our static website on React AP Web App. So the first one is basically our images. We're going to select this bucket. We're going to go to properties, and we'll be going to permissions. We go to bucket policy, and we're going to add a policy that is going to allow everyone to basically put objects in there. So again, later we can modify all these access, but for now, I'm going to keep it simple. Let's go back to this page. You can simply Google that how to basically permission for website access, or basically public access for put object or get object. I'm going to copy this policy that how to make this bucket public for this purpose. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to paste this here. But what I'm going to do for now, instead of just get object for now, since we're uploading information, we're going to put object for now. And instead of example bucket star, which means all the folders and all the contents of this folder will be available for everyone to basically upload put objects. Later, we can simply restrict this. For now, we selected principal, which is star. So we are telling AWS to allow everyone to do this for now. We're going to save this. And as you can see now, it says it's public. So there's one more thing we need to configure on this application. And that is, I'm going to close this guy. And we don't need this anymore because we copied this application. So one more thing, we need to set up a cross-origin resource sharing, which is CORS. And with CORS, basically, you can build rich client application with Amazon S3 and selectively allow cross-origin access to your Amazon S3 resources. So a React application basically will be able to use this folder and communicate with it easily. So, and you can see shortly how this works. If you go down here, for example, as you can see, http.example.com will be having a website similar to this address. We're going to allow that website basically to use this folder and interact with it in the CORS configuration. We're going to go to course configuration and we're going to save this. But what we're going to do, we're going to actually shortly replace our website address, which is a React application that will be served from the other folder to allow basically communication between the two. So I'm going to save this for now, but we'll be updating this website address shortly. So the other folder, I'm going to copy the other policy again and go back to my S3. Now we have to set up our React app. So I'm going to go to this folder. I'm going to go to, again, permission. Right. In the permission, I'm going to go to bucket policy. I'm going to set up this bucket policy. We're going to go ahead and change this to a bucket name that we are applying this policy to, which is a React web app. On top, you see it says React web app folder or bucket. And we're going to have get objects because we're just going to allow people to navigate to our website. We don't want to let them change our files or anything. We're just going to serve this application to our users through this bucket. So I'm going to save this guy. And as you can see now, the bucket is public. But one thing we need to do in order to make this a website basically bucket, we need to go to static web hosting, and we need to select this guy to basically use this bucket to host the website. And as you can see, it says by default you can use index.html. I'm going to use the same thing. For now, instead of error, if you have error, you can put it. For now, I'm just going to leave it empty. And this will be our address. This will be the address that we'll be using in order to access this website. So this is our URL. We can later map this to our Route 53 and create an alias or a record so we can point to this. It can be www my invoicing website, which will be pointing to that, or we can do more fancy things using Route 53. So for now, we're going to keep it simple. This is our static web application. I'm going to click on it, and as you can see right now, we have nothing in that folder, but hopefully shortly we'll be able to serve our traffic, serve our website through this bucket. So I think we are good on this. We already configured our web application folder. Well, one thing we need to configure, remember when I created the image site, and I told you guys to go to permission, and we did the public address. But one thing we configured, we told this course origin, course configuration basically to allow this address to allow this bucket, right? But for now, we're going to say, okay, once we have the address, we copied it from the static folder that we just created, and we're going to paste this here. So this will guarantee that only our website, our React application, will be accessing this this folder. Just to recap, we configured our course configuration and we made the bucket public to store our images, right? We're going to upload a bunch of invoices through our React application, and we created a folder for our React application. And what we did, we just made this, we turned off public access block, and then we went to bucket policy, we set up a policy, then we told S3, hey, we're going to let people to get objects, basically to receive traffic from this bucket. And one thing that we did, we went to properties, and in the properties, we converted this bucket to static website hosting. The good thing about this type of architecture, again, is we don't have to maintain anything whatsoever as far as serving our static traffic. S3 is a very, very distributed, awesome architecture as far as object storage, and it will scale automatically. There will be no bottleneck. Amazon will take care of all the underlying technology to serve our application. So our application will be really, really reliable when we're serving this from S3. This is a great architecture, and it's microservices because we are not dealing with anything as far as maintaining the underlying operating system, patching that operating system, or anything whatsoever. All right, guys, now we're going to start building our first component, which is called upload.js. So we're gonna use this component in order to upload our invoice to the backend. So upload.js, I'm gonna name this. And if you remember, we installed that React snippet component, which makes it easy to create all these boilerplate code. We're gonna start. So I did imrc. Let's do it once more. imrc, enter. It automatically imports React and component. And if I do cc enter, it's going to create a body of a class that has a name, which I'm going to fill it with upload extends component. Whenever we extend something, it means we're inheriting all the features and everything from this parent class, which is called component. Component has a state and has all the features that we need to build this module. So this is a module, this is a box that called upload, and after all these we're going to return something using JSX, and we're going to export it to whoever wants to use it. So we're going to export it. So when we export it, we need to import it somewhere, right? And this is where we're going to import it. We're going to have the same thing here, import upload from ./upload, right? And we're going to get rid of this app. So we imported our upload component. Now we need to use it like an HTML tag in our application. But at this time, this upload component doesn't return anything. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a simple division. Welcome to Code Engine, my channel, right? So once we save this and we go back to our application, you will see we have welcome to Code Engine in our application. So one thing I want to just discuss is a difference between virtual DOM and how they work together. If I right click on this guy and hit inspect, as you can see, this is a division root, right? This is a root division that I talked about, and now it has a content that says welcome to Code Engine. However, in the backend, remember that our public folder where we had our index.html file, it had a division with ID of root, and what we did in index.js is basically we replaced the content of root division with our upload component. We're using JSX, and under the hood, Babel converts this JSX to JavaScript and pass it on to our index.html, so browser can understand and show it to the end user. So this is a very, very basic skeleton of a module. You have a class that has a name and that it does a bunch of things. It has its own internal memory, which is called state. We can update the state. We can read value from state. So one thing I want to add here just is I want to install also Bootstrap, and I want to go back to Bootstrap page. If you Google it, Bootstrap, you will find this page, and we're going to use npm install React Bootstrap and Bootstrap. So this is just for the purpose of using Bootstrap also in our page. Let's go ahead and install this guy. So we'll be able to import Bootstrap in our index.js file. So every single component that we import is also can use this slash css / bootstrap.css. There it is. So every single component that I import into this app.js, they have access to this import. So I just need to import it in one place, not every single place. So I'm going to go ahead and start the application, and we're going to continue building our upload.js module. So I need to import a bunch of things. For example, like form, form group, labels, input things from React Strap, right? If you remember, if I go back to React Strap, and here's React Strap, let's click on it. So if I go down in React Strap, as you can see, we can create a command bottom like this. And this is how you create it. You create a bottom, and then you have to import it from React Strap. So there's a bunch of things you can create in React Strap. We're going to start building our form using this component, and you'll see it will be very easy process. So I'm going to import button. I'm going to import form. I'm going to import form group, and I'm going to import label. I'm going to import form text, right? And for now, we may need other things in the future. I'm not 100% sure as I'm building this on the fly. Let's go from React Strap, as you guys saw, and that's where we're building from React Strap. Perfect. So we're importing all these modules, so we should be able to use all this component in our application. There's one more component that we're going to use in order to convert our basically images to base 64, and we'll send them to API Gateway, and API Gateway will convert that base 64 code to an actual image into our S3 bucket. So let's install that as well before we forget it. So let's go ahead and do that. npm, oh, I'm sorry, I have to install this guy inside my app folder. Remember, always you want to go to cd app, and then now you're in the app, we're going to go ahead and install that. Alright guys, based on the instruction for React file base 64, it says you need to use this command in order to install React file base 64. I'm going to do that because eventually I'm going to upload base 64 code, convert my image to base 64 and submit it to my REST API backend. And then the backend, I'm going to have Node.js read that file, basically base 64, and convert it to an actual image. If you want to, for example, use Font Awesome, since we installed it, we can go ahead and use, let's say, Font Awesome, and in fact, I can do Font Awesome. I can go there and I can simply click on the GitHub repository, and if you scroll down in Font Awesome page, you will see the usage here, right? You see it says Font Awesome. This is how you can use it, right? And if I take a look at this React, for example, if I go back and import all these Font Awesome commands from my instruction, I will have something like this. Now you can import actually, you know, different icons. For example, FA info, let's say circle. Okay, and how do I know that? If you just go to Font Awesome and basically the icons, you will be able to see all the, you know, icons that's available for you to use in your React application. We're going to have a division, and this division is going to have a class name, and we're going to name it raw. So we're going to have a row in our bootstrap, from our bootstrap class, and inside this row now we're going to create a column, right? Now, so the first column that we're going to create is going to be class name equal to col-6. So, you know, bootstrap divides the page into 12 different sections, and we're going to offset the column by 3. It means so 3 columns from the left, 3 columns from the right. This will be 3 columns from the left plus 6 columns in the middle plus 3 columns on the right. So when you offset by 3, basically you're adding 3 columns to the left and you're adding 3 columns to the right. The total is always 12. Take a look. It's always 12. Perfect. So now we're going to go ahead and underneath, we're going to add a form from React Strap that we just installed, and we're going to say on the submit, or we're going to do a bunch of things. For now, we're just going to leave it empty. Perfect. And inside the form, we're going to create a form group, and in our form group, we're going to create a bunch of things in there. And basically, we're grouping a label and a text. That's a very simple concept. So let's create an H3 label. We're going to name this, and I'm going to, for example, use red text danger, right? And inside this, we're going to put something called processing, and we're going to complete this name later on. And for now, what we can do, we can just go ahead and say processing. It says processing documents, right? Whatever we want to put in. Okay, So this is for now. We have something, a placeholder here. So inside that, we're going to have an, let's say H6, we're going to say upload your invoice or upload invoice, right? And after this, we're going to have a form text, and we're going to have a color of muted, right? It's like disabled, and it will be grayed out, and it will be, let's say, for example, upload PNG or JPEG for now, right? For onSubmit, I'm going to use something called a handle submit. All right, and then this handle submit, I'm going to, of course, define it somewhere in my code. And let's, for example, use part of this as just adding the handle submit. So handle submit, eventually it's going to be an async call, let's say to handle submit. If we send this form to, let's say, DynamoDB table, it's going to be handle submit like that. All right. And what we're going to do in there, we're going to say when we submit, first of all, we want to prevent the default basically submit, and we type prevent default. So we don't want to basically submit the form. That's the just natural reaction of JavaScript. And I'm going to have to create something called here in my state. I'm going to name this processing, for example. All right, I'm going to have this, let's say once we upload the form, we're going to have a confirmation number, right? Confirmation number, this is going to be for now an empty value, right? And the state, again, as I said, it's an object that contains a bunch of variables and things that we can store to work with in our component, right? Whenever you want to update a value that you're storing in the state, you definitely always need to use set state. And what we're going to do, we're going to say for confirmation for now, when we do that, we're just going to update the value to uploading, right? When you click the submit button, what's happening, the confirmation variable that's inside to our component will be updated with this value. I just want to save this and see if there's an error. We'll address the error. If not, we'll just go ahead and continue building our form. All right, so it says processing is not defined. I need to put this inside my render, and I'm gonna just save this as a constant for now, right? All right, so as you can see, now we have a form. All right, now inside this guy, we're gonna have another division, and we're gonna assign a class name, and we're gonna name it form-group, and we're gonna use space. We're gonna have files, and we're going to use a class called color. We'll see shortly how this affects our application, but let me go ahead and import and basically use my file base64 that is supposed to receive that image, right, and then upload it to my backend. I can use something called multiple, which is going to be basically equal true. I'm going to basically allow my application to receive a bunch of files if there is more than one file. Otherwise, we can just keep it simple. For now, we're going to upload just one file and see how and basically study the reaction of our application. So, and we're going to say once this is done, then we're going to go ahead and call something called a function called get files, and we're going to say .bind this, right? So we're going to bind this because as we submit this application, as we send this file, we're going to make sure we don't lose track of this existing object, which is this, right? So by using this function, we are kind of keeping track of this file and this method that we're passing to. So we're going to create an async function that is called get files. And we're going to pass all the files that we received, right? And what we're going to do, again, we're going to update our state, set that state. And inside the state, we're going to say, we're going to have two things. One of them is called loading, right? To basically this variable it keeps track of the changes in our application to see if it's ready and it's finished basically uploading or not. And the second one, we're going to have files, and we're going to have for now it's going to be empty. Right now we can go ahead and in our set.state we're going to have is loading is going to be equal to basically extracting data, right? Because once we upload that, we want to update the is loading equal to is data, right? And we're going to update our files, that the things that we received here, right? You can basically simply only leave this as files, but since I want to make sure you guys understand all the steps, I'm going to include that. But you could ideally just use files because the key value, they're the same, right? So basically I have this function ready to go. So we're going to add other things to this function, but for now we're just going to keep it simple. Let's go down, and on line 47 we do have a complaint here. Yes, because we haven't closed this basically section. Okay, I used file-base64 basically to provide a place to for the user to upload their file. So if I save this application, and if I go back here, hopefully we see the result. Perfect. All right, guys, as you can see, now I have a form that has a section so I can choose the file. User can go ahead and select an invoice. So let's say I select an invoice. As you can see, it's a sample.png. So far so good. I know we need to basically make this look good. I'm going to show you how exactly to use CSS to style this page. All right, let's go back. We created this file, and then we're going to go ahead and create our second form group. So what I want to do, I just want to put this part of our basically form group. So these guys are going to be just one part of our application. So you see the distance now is better. All right. So we're going to create another form group. So we create form groups to group these elements together. So the next one I'm going to create, I'm going to have it label. And this one is going to be, let's say I want to have H6. I want to put this invoice, right? Invoice. Awesome. So now let's go ahead and create an input. Perfect. Input. And in our input, we're going to have type. It's going to be equal to text. I'm going to name this equal to invoice, right? And I'm going to also use an ID, right? Just for now. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to use this ID or not as I'm building this application on the fly on invoice, all right? And we're going to have a value for this. I'm assuming we're going to, add some values in here, and then we want to make this required. So let's make this required, right? And then let's close this input. And actually, instead of doing that, we're just going to do slash. And we're going to have to say we're going to have to say the value of this guy is going to be something from our state, because we're going to update eventually the value that we're going to receive from the OCR object recognition module from our backend. And we're going to basically parse that JSON file and upload the corresponding value in our state. So this .state .invoice. So I'm assuming I need to create this invoice in my state. So we're going to go ahead and create that. It's basically, as you can see, state is the place that I can just keep creating and holding these values while the application or component is running. It says input is not undefined, and if you remember in React Strap we imported all these values. There you go. We are missing another one that I just added. So if I go back, there it is. I have a form that has an invoice now. So one more, this is going to be basically our invoice number, right? One more thing that I need, it's going to be my basically amount and date. So we're going to keep going, building those options as well. So if I go back to my form, I'm going to have another form group, and this form group is going to be label. It's going to be another label, right? Sorry, it needs to be capital label, perfect. And I'm going to have again h6, right? Same story. It's going to be amount $, right? In the parentheses, I'm going to have $, and I'm going to have another input. I'm just going to copy it, so if you guys don't mind, so we can save some time. So this one is going to be amount, right? Amount, and as you can guess, it's going to be on it's going to be updating some values in my state, right? The value, it will read from amount, which for now there's no value. Hopefully once we make the API call, we'll have values, and this is binded basically to that value. All right, so we created the second group. The third one, as you can assume, is going to be another form group. All right, and we're going to have another one, as you can guess. It's going to be the date of the invoice, right? This is going to be date. I'm going to name this date, right? And as you can see, this is now refreshing, and we have another field called date. So there it is, another form group, and we need one more probably, and we're going to name it vendor. But those are the basically main values that we're going to work with, like amount, invoice number, amount, and date. We're going to extract these values from the photo, and you'll see how. So this is going to be, for example, vendor, right? And then, as you can guess, this is going to be vendor, and I need date and vendor in my state. Perfect. All right, so let's say we have a description as well. Let's go create a section for description. All right, so I'm going to create another form group, right? Inside this form group, we're going to have another label. I'm just going to name this description, right? And we're going to create in another input. Let's say we create another input. We name this time. This is going to be text, of course, and this is going to be description, right? And again, as usual, we're going to have this value binded to our state. All right, and it's going to be like that, and this is going to be calling that. Perfect. All right, if we go back to our form, hopefully we have a clean form now, and now we need a command bottom in order to submit this form to the server. So what we're going to do, we're going to go down, and at the end of this form group, after this guy, we're going to use button, and then it's going to be class name equal to btn. If you're familiar with Bootstrap, if not, take a look at just btn. Class names, you will find it. btn large, it's going to be a large button, and it's going to be btn block because I want to basically cover the entire section. I'm going to name this, and what else? I'm going to change the color, let's say, to btn success, so it will look exactly like the thing that I showed you guys at the beginning of this tutorial. Let's say like this, submit, and if we go back, hopefully perfect. All right, so we are getting there. It's getting close to what I showed you guys, but the only thing that's a little bit different is our CSS section that kind of covers all this, creates a nice, good looking file upload. You can definitely go ahead and use file upload CSS. There's a lot of different styles on the web. You can simply go ahead and use whichever you guys like to use, but I have one that's actually I downloaded from the web, and it looks great, and I use it. I'm going to share it here. Hopefully you guys like it. The code will be in the description section. You can just take a look at it and download the exactly CSS file. All right, guys, I imported the upload.css file. We're going to go through this upload CSS. You can simply use it from my repository. I'll put the address in the description section, and it's very obvious. You guys know by now how to import modules and things into a React application, and I'm going to use just import upload.css. Now if you take a look, once we import that module, now our basically upload area looks different. It's nice and clean and neat. We can just go ahead and upload our file. Let's take a look at the CSS file. It's very actually easy CSS file. It's just create some borders and paddings. For example, if I remove the color white, as you can see, it will remove the section, but we are using FFF. It's a little bit light gray for the background. So if I remove this section, if you take a look at down here, it says or drag it here. If I remove this section, you'll see this part is being removed. And if I go back to another section, for example, if I remove this, you will see it will remove that icon. So this, what it does is basically it positions it absolute. It gives a little bit from the top space, and it basically we adjust the size of the icon, and the display is a block, so it will be in one row, and background size it's 100, and it doesn't repeat that icon. So basically adjust this icon in the middle of the file. So this basically is positioning the files item, right? And this part, if I remove it, and as you can see, let's add it back. There it is. As you can see, I have a border around when it's focused. And for the input size, if I remove it, as you can see, this is basically the entire section that creates it aligns the text to the center. The width is 100%. There's no margin, and I have it basically dashed, as you can see, like a green style around this area. So this is basically a simple styling CSS file. I hope you guys understand CSS. If not, you can simply use this file or find any styling from internet, but it's actually very easy to understand. Let me know if you have any questions. I don't want to waste a lot of time on this CSS styling. I just want to show you guys how this is done. So processing document, we're going to work with this guy, and as you can see, we have the upload. We can click on it, we can select the file. It says sample file, and hopefully once we submit this to API backend, to API gateway, hopefully we'll receive some values back in return. So we're pretty much done with the front end. I know we need the menu. We can make this very fancy look good, but I want to focus on the backend services. This was just the React side, but we'll be basically issuing asynchronous call to API gateway to receive and work with the backend services. We're still not done with the React part, but as far as styling and making this form just look good enough for our application, we're done up to this point. Let's now focus on the backend services, and hopefully at the end we connect this React application to API gateway. Through our API gateway, I'll pass that base64 image to our Lambda function, and Lambda will be basically save the image into Amazon S3. Well, by using Lambda and API gateway, we're basically building a serverless application, because if you're not receiving any traffic, nothing is running, we're not paying for anything, nobody needs to maintain any server whatsoever. Amazon will basically run our code on demand. This is a great way of creating applications for MVP, testing your idea, and testing different markets. So we're going to start actually building a function in Northern California region, and we're going to choose the one that it says from scratch, because we're going to have to create everything from scratch. Upload image, and I'm going to stick with Node.js version 12. So you can take a look at the blueprints, and of course they have a repository. You can basically take a look at the different code bases, but the one that we are about to build is uploading a base64 image from our React application to S3. Let's click on create function. All right, our function is ready. It's called upload image. We'll be connecting basically this. As you can see, add trigger is empty because we haven't connected this upload image to our API gateway. So we're going to go from API gateway to Lambda and from Lambda to destination, which is going to be our Amazon S3. So in here, as you can see, I have a function basically that exports a index.handler. As you can see, it's going to export this, and basically it consists of a success code of 200 and a JSON.stringify. It basically returns this string to whoever calls this function. So I'm going to replace this with a function that I have ready here for you guys. There it is. Okay, now I'm going to exactly tell you what this function does. So in the first line, I do have a constant that requires this AWS SDK. Basically, we use require to import the AWS SDK so we can access S3 and start creating different functionalities. So in React application, we use import. In Node.js, we use keyword called require. So export.handler, I have replaced this with event, context, and callback. Basically, event is the request that we're going to receive from our React application. Then it's going to go to our API gateway, and at the end, it's going to land here in our Lambda function. So we're going to actually split or convert this event object to JSON, right? And we're going to take basically all these different pieces from our request and store them to different variables, right? So far we've done nothing. We just received the event object, and we're kind of extracting the values from the event request, right? And what's going to happen when you pass the basically image to base 64, the request is going to come with an extra quotations, right? So with basically slice, we're going to remove the first and last basically quotes. That it's going to look like this. So this is image, let's say for example base 64, and we're just interested in the content between the double quotes. So we're going to remove them using this slice, right? And well, once we cleaned up that, then we have two variables, one of them called file path, which is going to be basically the image ID that we're going to pass to this Lambda function dot extension. So basically we're going to concatenate the image name dot the extension, and of course the extension has this extra double quote. We're going to remove them using slice 1 and -1, right? We're going to make use of buffer, and basically buffer, it's going to be a stream of characters in base 64 format, and we're going to convert them to a variable called, we're going to store them in a variable called buffer. So we are not interested in the first section of the base 64 image. If you take a look, if I go to this website, base64.image.de, and if I upload one sample invoice, for example, this is going to convert the code, and as you can see, this is the basically base 64. We are not interested in the first section up to this comma, right? And the image actually starts from the letter after comma, which is I, right? So we need to kind of match the first part and extract it from the first part of our request of string, right? So if I go back here, you can see simply if I paste this guy here, you see from the beginning we do have data, right? And then we have image with word, which is basically matches any word, and plus is basically more than one character. And we're going to basically remove that, replace that first character with nothing. So we're basically taking out the string up to comma from the beginning of the string. I'm going to show you exactly. We're going to have a short tutorial inside this video, and you're going to learn everything about regex, or basically regular expression. Don't worry about it. But for now, know that this part is basically taking out the first part of the request and replace it with nothing. Basically, it's removing that part that we don't need. Well, once we have the buffer available, now we're going to create our S3 params, which is basically going to be key, body, content, basically encoding, content type, and the bucket that we're about to save the image to, right? So the bucket, we do have the name. Remember, we configured this the beginning of this tutorial. And then we have image. It can be JPEG, it can be PNG. And then we know the content is base 64. We have the buffer, and then the key path, of course, is the name of the file that we're building. Well, we're going to pass this param to S3 uploader, and S3 uploader is a very easy piece of code, as you can see. Let me just maximize this section so you guys see it. This is better now. So S3.uploads, we're going to pass this parameter, and we're going to have a function that can have an error or data. So if we have an error, we're going to send a callback using their error. Otherwise, we're going to create a response that contains a code 200, which is a success code, and the header, which is a JSON response. We're going to put that in the header, and in the body, we're going to say uploaded, and we're going to return that back to the caller, right? So this is a very simple. The code will be in the description section. Just make sure you understand how the code works. What I want to do right now, I want to test this application. But the way I want to test this, I need to basically craft a request and kind of like tell the Lambda function, this is the request that you will be receiving from my React application. Well, as you know, we have the request, basically the image here. Now, we're going to go back to the test section. We're going to click on test. Since we don't have any tests, we need to create one. And I'm just going to name this test. And as you can see, we're going to pass a bunch of key values to this Lambda function. And as you recall, this function basically is supposed to receive 1, 2, 3, 4 key value pairs. I have those ready. I'm going to paste them in the test, and we're going to test this function. Well, we're going to click on test now, right? And we're going to paste this here. So we're going to name this test. As you guys know, this function is waiting for an image ID. I just want to test it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. File extension, and the folder, I'm just going to name it folder, right? And of course, I'm going to need this long base 64 string, and we're going to paste it here. Perfect. So we have a request ready. We're going to send this as soon as we create. We hit create. We have a now test packet ready to be sent to this function. All right, now we are once we have that data ready, now we're going to click on test and see what happens. So we're going to click on test, and as you can see, our Lambda function now it uploads the base 64 image to Amazon S3, hopefully, and we should have an image ready here. There it is. So we have an image. If I double click on it, as you can see, this is the test invoice that I downloaded from the web. So perfect. Now we were able to use the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 code and the extension that we passed, and we basically created a file into Amazon S3. Later on in real life application, you can use pre-signed URLs. You can basically have your Lambda function create a secret basically value to that basically allows your script to upload to S3 in order to make this more secure. But for now, we're going to stick with this plan. So I'm going to delete this for now. In case you get an error from your Lambda function that you're not allowed to initiate that request, what you need to know, your Lambda function, it basically uses a role in order to make that request. If it's not the first time, if it's the first time that you guys are using this Lambda function, you need to go into your IAM and go to the permission and attach a policy that basically has Amazon S3 full access. So add the Amazon S3 full access, and then you can go ahead and test your function. One thing before we leave the Lambda function, I want to show you guys, if you go to the monitoring section in your Lambda function, you will be able to basically take a look at all these requests in your CloudWatch request. Take a look, it says view logs in CloudWatch. You're going to click on CloudWatch, and you will be able to basically go through all the requests that you have received through our Lambda function. Take a look. This is the most recent one that we just uploaded. And as you can see, we have received all these values, and then we created the value request to Amazon S3, and it was successful. So this is something to know. You can take a look at all the history using your Amazon CloudWatch. So we were able to successfully create this Lambda function. And now if we go back to function, we do have one method. So there's only one point between our React application and Lambda function, and that is a RESTful API, which we're going to build in API Gateway. So here's the thing. At any scale, Amazon will be able to handle your RESTful API. You don't need to maintain any server, nothing, no EC2, no patching, no being worried about security. Amazon is going to take care of everything. And as soon as you receive traffic through that URL, Amazon will be able to process that and basically respond to your application. So we creating a RESTful API, and I'm going to click on build. In the build section, I'm going to say OK here. We're going to create a REST but new API. I'm going to name this AP, and it's going to be a simple REST API. Perfect. Region, edge optimized, and private. So endpoint can be different. Endpoint can be actually private. Endpoint can be regional, so it will be accessed throughout the region, and it can be edge optimized for basically enhancement for in conjunction with CloudFront. So I'm going to click on create API, and I'm going to create a method. So the first method that I'm about to build, I want to create a post method. So basically we'll be able to post our images to this application. So this function, it will be using a HTTP or Lambda or Mock or any other AWS services. In this integration type, we'll be using Lambda function that we just created, and it's called image upload, right? If I go back to upload image, if I go back to functions, I do see that. So in here, if as soon as I type upload, you see the function shows up because I picked Lambda function. Now I want to save this guy, and it says you're about to save this. Yes, I want to create this function. So AWS API Gateway has a lot of features like, creating your API keys, client certificates. We're just going to kind of like scratching the surface. And what's happening here, basically our client, as you can see, it's going to send the request to our endpoint, and the integration request is going to pass all these information to the upload image function, right? And what's going to happen in this scenario, upload image is going to upload the image and send the response 200 back, and basically eventually to our client. We're going to actually enable CORS, so we can actually send requests from different locations. We're going to enable CORS, right, for now. And what we're going to do again, we're going to go back to actions, and we're going to deploy this to basically a new stage. Remember, when you create an API, you need to deploy it. You can have like production, you can have like development, you can have staging, different environment, and you can deploy your API to different stages before actually going to production. So I'm going to create here, for example, production, right? And I'm going to say stage description. This is my production stage, right? Yeah. And I don't need anything else. I'm just going to click on save and deploy, and there it is. Amazon is going to give me a URL that I can basically call from my, there it is, it says missing authentication token. Perfect. So this function, this endpoint basically will be able to receive base 64 hopefully request from user, and then pass it on to this Lambda function, and hopefully this Lambda function will save it to Amazon S3. Alright guys, now we are ready to actually send this image via our React application to API Gateway to this endpoint URL. And this endpoint URL, it does have a method called post, which hopefully it should send our request to Lambda function called upload image that we just built. And if I refresh this page in my Lambda function, you see now my Lambda function has a trigger, which is API Gateway. All right, so this is our Lambda function that you see at the end. Hopefully it's going to our upload image function. So let's go to our React application right now. And what we're going to do here, after this get file, I want to actually start creating a asynchronous basically call to this RESTful API. I'm going to use await, and it's going to be fetch, and our endpoint is going to be the address that we just created. So in the address we just created, it's going to be, if we go to stage, production, there is our address. I'm just going to copy this address. Perfect. And I'm going to go back to my application. This is going to be perfect, my endpoint, and I'm going to have comma. So now we're going to pass a bunch of information using our like headers and method and things that we're going to do. So our method is going to be post, and comma, our headers, it's going to be comma, it's going to be accept, and it's going to be application slash JSON, comma, and our content type, it's going to be colon application slash JSON. Right now we need to just create the body side, and in the body what we're going to do, we're going to pass a JSON that stringify, we're going to pass this data to our endpoint. All right, so I named this data, so I have to create something called var data. It's going to be equal a JSON packet that it's going to be basically using these elements. So one of them is going to be file extension. We're going to pass for now like something like PNG. We're going to have image ID, and we're going to pass this as like a UID. And I'm going to create that shortly. The folder, again, it's going to be UID that I'm about to build. And of course, I do have an img, which is my image, which is going to be this state. If you guys remember, I set the state here to files. And from my files, I'm going to pick the first index and convert it to base 64. Okay, perfect. So now that we have this available here, what we're going to do, now we're going to go and basically create these values. The first one that we need to create is our UID. So I'm going to create a constant called UID. It's going to be equal to, I'm just going to create a random number using math. So math.round. So let's say we're going to create a number like let's say a big number, right? Plus math.random number, and we're going to do like, let's say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 minus 1. So between 0 and, I don't know, 10 million or 1 million. 1 2 3 4 5 6. Let's say between 1 and 1 million, right? And then this is going to be our value here. All right. Our img, and I'm going to have in comma here. So we're going to use this UID basically in our package, and we have the image set up in our application. So one thing that we need to configure is basically it's going to be our this is going to be, sorry, data, and this is going to be data. All right, so we do have an error here. Oh, I do have this extra parentheses open close. Perfect, this is good. Now our constant, this is going to be like a random number, and we'll go to this request using this variable called data. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to actually go ahead and test this function. But as soon as we upload this file, we're expecting this to basically receive this request to our form, and hopefully it will pass it on to API Gateway, and API Gateway will send it to Lambda function and eventually to S3. All right, so I'm going to save this, and then we're going to close this function. Perfect. So we're going to save this. We're going to go back to our application. We're going to select the file. And our application is going to make that asynchronous call and here's the image. So we were able to pass the image from our React application to API gateway, then from API gateway to Lambda function, and the Lambda function was able to save it to our Amazon S3. This is the random number that our UID method created, and here's the file that we just uploaded. Perfect. Congratulations. We were able to successfully upload our image to Amazon S3 using our React application. Now it comes the most important part of this application, which was basically using Amazon Textract service in order to basically extract the values, text values from the image. Now we're going to actually build this part. I'm very excited for this last piece. Let's get started. All right, guys, this is the invoice that we'll be using. As you can see, it says amount due 8/30/2020, and then we got date and invoice number. So this is a regular invoice, and we'll be using basically this invoice as a test, as an example throughout the application. So I'm going to close this invoice. I'm going to actually go ahead and upload this file, and there is our invoice. We're going to just go ahead and normally upload this without our application, because now we're interested in the OCR section. So I'm going to pull up my command prompt, and as you can see, I'm about to issue a command called AWS because I installed AWS CLI and I've configured my secret key and secret access key, so I will be able to communicate with my AWS through CLI. So the command is AWS Textract space analyze document -- document S3 object. The bucket, it's going to be React app web app images, right? If you remember, this is our basically bucket that we're pointing to. And of course, the name of the file that I'm trying to process is basically sample.png. And the feature type is table. The way Amazon is going to return this is going to be as a table. And -- region US-1. As soon as I hit enter, Amazon is going to take some time and return all the extracted values from this document. There you go. As you can see, now we do have a complete return value. It's basically a key value response JSON object from AWS Textract. Let's take a look what we have here. It says block type word, confidence level that this is basically the invoice number is 90.78. As you can see, it extracted the text, and geometrically basically it says where it's located in our document. Basically using this X and Y, you can actually locate that piece on the file. So what I want to do now, I want to issue the same command. Let's clear the page. I want to issue the same command, but I want to add something at the end that says grep text. So basically, I'm just only interested in the values that are text. If I issue the command once more, as you can see, Amazon AWS Textract, it's going to extract the values, and one of them should be, here it is, my total amount at the bottom. As you can see, it says 8/30/2020. That's the amount due that I showed you in the image file. And it says thank you for your business. So we were able to extract all these values easily by using Amazon AWS Textract service. Now what we're going to do, we're going to actually connect this piece to our application. After uploading this image to S3, we're going to automatically issue another async call from our React application to Textract, and we're going to pass the basically path of this file that we just uploaded and let AWS Textract extract all those values. The values will be returned to React application, and we'll be able to bind them to our form. So let's get started. All right, guys, I'm going to upload just a test document that I downloaded from internet, and we're going to run this through the application and see if it returns something, right, through Textract. It's called test1.png. So since AWS Textract is not supported in Northern California as of December 2019, I'm going to go to Northern Virginia since it's supported there, and I'm going to create a new function. Our new function is going to call OCR, and we're going to use Python 3.7 for this application. Sorry, I think I clicked the wrong thing. we're going to click on create function, not privacy policy. All right, our function is ready. This function will be using a bunch of things. So I'm going to click on I am role and I'm going to give it access to S3 and Textract. So in the attach policy, we're going to type in Textract. There it is, Textract full access and service. And also I'm going to give it access to Amazon S3 full access. So attach policy, perfect, all added to this. Now we're going to go back to our Lambda function. So I'm going to give it at least 10 seconds because it's going to take some time to process this. I'm going to save this. So for the first part of this application, I have created this portion of code using Python. I'm going to walk you through this. So I'm going to import three things. One, it's going to be JSON. Boto3 is basically a library that it's going to help me talk to a bunch of AWS services. Whenever you want to connect to these Amazon services in Python, Boto3 is probably your option. And I'm going to have a regular expression. Basically, I'm going to walk you through and show you guys how regular expressions work, so you guys hopefully can learn also regular expression. It's going to help me to extract the values that I'm interested in my application to return to the React web page. So event, as you can see, event is coming to this function. In this scenario, it's going to be my file name. Since I just uploaded the test file, I'm just going to go ahead and use, if you guys remember, I had a file name called test1.png that I uploaded, and I'm going to run it through Textract and extract the values. So I have a list of bad characters. So I'm going to search for these bad characters in case I have a parentheses open or bracket open and close next to my total amount $sign. I'm just going to remove it because AWS Textract is very accurate, but sometimes it might return the values that it's not expected. So this is a kind of a filter to look for bad items, right? S3 bucket that you see is our S3 bucket that we had React app web app image, the document name, we have it, and of course the client that we're going to use to contact AWS Textract. In this section, as you can see, Textract, we're going to call the method called detect document text, and we're going to pass the document which contains of the bucket name and the file name that we want to process. This will return a response, and we're going to basically go through the response using a for loop for every single item that we find in the blocks in the response that's coming back from AWS Textract. If that item is equal to Word, we're going to just append the basically item text to the result. So result is basically going to be a complete string of all the values that we extracted from the document. So let's save this document, and I want to test this function. This doesn't matter. As soon as you click test, it's just going to be a nothing because we're not going to use it in this example. Well, now we're going to click on test and wait for this function to finish executing this process. Okay. Let's take a look. As you can see, now we have a bunch of text values in our output. So basically, we went through, we called the AWS Textract using this Boto3 library, right? And then we passed the file name and bucket name, and we went through all the results that's coming back from the Textract result, and we extracted all the text document and kind of attached them to each other. We created a string, and we are printing the process result. Now we need to basically kind of select all the values that we are interested in, like let's say a total amount, and send it back to our React application, right? This is the final step of this application. Or if you want to have, like, I don't know, invoice number, we're going to do that. Well, before we actually move to the last piece of this Python function, I want to show you guys, I want to introduce you to RegEx, and hopefully you guys get comfortable with RegEx concept. Let's go back to this practice page. Well, on the right side, as you can see, I have like, let's say, extracted text value, and in one part of this text value, it says invoice number INV whatever on top right. You see that? So I am interested in that value, and I would like to extract this from this text. One way of doing that will be brute forcing, basically going through all the characters in this file using a for loop, but that's not an efficient way. In order to extract values from string or from a file, we use something called regex. So you can download this tool called Atom. It's a basically very powerful IDE that you can develop actually Python code in it, but these are just a text file. And the reason I'm going to use it because it does have at the bottom some right, you see the blue icon of it says use regex, and then of course I have the match case enabled. So make sure these two enabled in your Atom, and then select the file, and we're going to test this regular expression that I've developed. So take a look. When I hit search, when I hit enter, as you can see on top right, this string this pattern that I created, it is collecting, it is basically grabbing the invoice number from this file. It is amazing, right? I want to walk you through all the things that you need to know about regex on the left side. So when we use dot, it means any character except new line, right? So if I go here and hit dot, you see if I select this file and hit dot, it's basically going to collect everything because I'm saying every character but dot. You see that? If I do /d, I'm basically telling regular expression that I'm only interested in numbers, right? You see on the right side, I'm just selecting all the numbers. So regular expression is capable of doing that. If you're only interested in the numbers, you use /d, and as you can see, I have a cheat sheet here so you can use it. And if I use /D, it means everything but numbers, right? So I'm not interested in numbers. As you can see, this pattern will only collect the letters, right? If I use W, it means I'm only interested in again words. Capital D, it means I'm not. W, it means not a word, right? And /S means white space. Let's say if we select, for example, /S, as you can see, it's just selecting all the spaces in the file. And /S, it means not spaces. Or for example, if I wanted to extract the IP address that I have in this line, I'm going to have it use this pattern. As you can see, is selecting only the IP address in this pattern. And the reason for that, I'm going to say I'm going to use /b word boundary, and it's going to be a digit followed by 3. It might be 2 digit, 1 digit, or 3 digit. So basically, I'm specifying a range between 1 and 3, and it's followed by a dot, and then again 3-digit value followed by a dot / again a number. It might be 1 or 2 or 3 digit number, right? And then I followed by a dot and again another number. So this is basically a pattern to match any IP address in my application. So if I want to go back to my example of the invoicing, here it is. So invoice number, as you can see, I'm telling these regex that, okay, you need to see the invoice followed by a space and then followed by either this hashtag sign or number or num. So as you can see, these are in the bracket, and bracket means matches character, one of the characters inside this. And then I say plus, which means one or more space, and then followed by a bunch of numbers and values, right? So this is basically a regular expression that matches the invoice number. We're going to have different regular expressions to extract the values from this returned string from AWS Textract. So in the second section, after getting this value back from AWS Textract, we're going to have to basically create a bunch of regular expressions. And in Python, we can basically apply regular expressions to ignore case, basically remove case sensitivity in Python by using this $i at the beginning of our regular expression. For example, for amount, we're going to say look for invoice total or amount or total or balance, and then followed by space and then amount due or amount or total amount, because some invoices might have total followed by amount. Some invoices might have, for example, balance due. I don't know. They might be different shape. So basically, we have to craft this regular expression, and once you build a great regular expression, it will basically extract all the values accurately. You need to work on this, but this is a good example. It's pretty accurate, but you need to practice more on regular expression. Let me know if you have any questions. Amount again is followed by a space, and then since we're dealing with invoice amount, we're expecting to see $1 sign, and then followed by a number, right, that can have 1 digit up to 10 digit, and then dot followed by the decimal. For example, 846.32 cents, right? And the string that we're going to apply this pattern to, it's called a processed result that we just printed on the screen, right? And so RE was basically the library that we imported in our Python code, and we used it to find all the possible matches from our AWS Textract result. So if amount exists there, right, we're going to have a value, right, and then we're going to split this amount, and because if the result is going to return, for example, let's say this is going to be total space amount, and then it's going to be space $832.23, right? So if we split this by an empty character and we get the last index, we're basically just getting the total value, which is the number, which is the total dollar amount, right? And we're going to say for every single bad character, if we see a bad character next to the dollar sign or next to the number, we're just going to go ahead and replace that with nothing, right? If the amount exists, we're just going to append it to a result because we were able to find it. But what if we don't find this amount, right? If we don't find this amount, we're just going to append empty string. Basically, it was an unsuccessful extraction. So we have to create a very, very good and accurate regular expression. You might be able to modify or improve this regular expression to collect all the values, but there might be invoices that you upload and it's not able to basically find this value, so it's going to return nothing to your application. We're going to do the same thing for invoice numbers. As you can see, we have a regular expression to check the invoice number, and then then we're going to split this. Then we're going to split this using a space, and we're going to select the number, which is the invoice number, because invoice number, most likely it's going to be invoice and then followed by this character, and then, for example, INV, this is the invoice number. So if we split this by space, the last index is going to be our result. We're going to pick that. But if we don't find it, if it's not in the result, right, if INV or IN, it's not in the invoice number, then we're going to just use another regular expression and hopefully find the result. We're going to remove again the bad characters. If there is something in the string, it means we were able to find the invoice number. Otherwise, we'll just append the empty string. We're going to do this, repeat the same process for invoice date. We're going to apply this regular expression. Again, all the code will be in the description in my GitHub repository. You can download it. For now, just make sure you have a good understanding and follow these steps one by one. So we're going to again apply this regular expression to extract the dates, and we're going to try to split this again by characters and select the last index. If there's something, if it's less than 2, it means we need to basically find a new pattern. So it means we were not able to find the date. If we find it, we'll remove the bad characters, and then of course we'll append it and return the final result, because we are appending all the things to our basically result, which is a list of the things. So we're going to save this, and in this time I'm going to remove our old in test document. I'm just going to go ahead and upload our invoice that I showed you when I started this application. We're going to upload that. Perfect. Awesome, we have the sample here. I'm going to go back to my application and I'm going to just change the file name to sample.png, right? I'm going to save this file and I'm going to run it. Hopefully we're going to see the total amount using that regular expression, invoice date and invoice number. Perfect. As you can see, our regular expression collected 832.20, the invoice number, and also the date of the invoice using all those regular expression. How cool is that? So we were able to basically pass the function, pass the file name to the function, and run it through AWS Textract. We're going to receive a JSON object from AWS Textract, and we're just going to parse that, hopefully to extract some of those values using regular expressions. Very easy concept. But as you can see, we are now have a JSON object that contains our total value of the invoice, the amount, and the invoice number, and also the date. These are now the text values that we extracted. So our next step, it's going to be just the easy connection of this file, of this basically Lambda function to AWS API gateway. We're going to create the REST application and hopefully make the API call from our React application and bind the values to the to the text, bind the values to the text boxes in our React application. So let's do that. So I'm going to go back to my API gateway, and in the API gateway, I want to create a function, a basically resource that's called created resource. I'm going to name this OCR/OCR. I'm going to enable course and create the function, create the resource. Well, we're going to add a method, create a method. I'm going to name this post. Post might be fine, yes. And we're going to collect the information from that API, from that Lambda function. And the way we're going to connect this to Lambda function is just by typing the OCR. But as soon as I type O, there's nothing in the box, and the reason because we need to change the region to US East 1. If I change this to US East 1 and I type OC, sorry, it should be US East 1. There it is. And as soon as I type O, we'll be able to find the OCR function. And I'm going to save this, save. And once we save this, I am going to deploy this to our production. Remember, any change you make, you have to deploy it to your function. And this is our, again, endpoint. Now we're going to go back to our React application. And in the React application, we're going to make another basically call that's going to take care of this Textract value. So what we're going to do, this is our endpoint. I'm just going to copy what I have here. And then after this, let's say you can actually make these like, wait for the first call to finish, and then you can make promises like, like a serial promises, make sure the first one goes through, make sure the file is it's being uploaded to S3, and then you can issue the second basically API call. But for now, since this is a tutorial, we're going to take it easy and we're going to go over the concepts. So we basically issued the first API call. We uploaded the image. We know for sure the image exists, and now we're going to just go ahead and pass this value, which is going to be let's say I'm going to have a constant, for example, called target image, and it's going to be equal to UID plus, let's say, the PNG, for example. Okay. At the end of this production, we need to add /OCR. As you can see, we have the slash and then we have /OCR. So we need to pass this to a /OCR. We're going to open the basically F12, which is a developer section, and we're going to see if we can upload this values to our application. Well, we have an error here. Well, we're going to add this method called onChange in order to fix that. We're going to say onChange we use this dot handle change. We're going to use this dot handle change, and we're going to copy this for all the input text. I'm going to add this to all the input text, input text, and input text. And of course, I'm going to add this to the handle change to, I'm going to create this handle change right here. Perfect. And I'm going to have this function here, handle change. And this handle change is going to receive the event. And what we're going to do, we're going to have event that prevent default, right? And then I'm going to have a, let's say, constant, const. One is going to be the target. It's going to be equal to event.target, and const value, it's going to be equal to target.value, and it's going to be const of name. It's going to be target that we received the target dot name. All right. Once we got that, we're going to go ahead and say this dot set state. In the state, we're going to just update the name equal to value, right? And what we're going to do in the state, we have whatever value we receive, we're just going to go ahead and update that into the state. So target, perfect. All right, let's see if there's still error. There's no more error. It says font awesome and things that we haven't used. We can just go ahead and simply remove font awesome. See if there's another complaint in the application. The last complaint, or basically it's not a complaint, it's just a a warning. It says name is assigned a value but never used, which is fine. I mean, we can ignore that for now. So let's go ahead and see if we can select our image. It's going to upload to Amazon S3, and hopefully it's going to return the value, and we're going to see how it works. So the image probably got uploaded to Amazon S3 as you anticipated, but the problem is now we're getting an error here. Cross origin, if you need to activate cores, you can simply use for now an extension that is called allow origin. I'm going to show you how. So it's called allow course access control. It basically adds it to your web browser if you get that error. Otherwise, it's a Chrome plugin. Otherwise, it should be fine without any problem. So what we're going to do in the last step, once we issue the last OCR command, which is our target image, we passed it. We're just going to get the response back. So I added the const response. Once we get the response, then now we can actually go ahead here and say, now we're going to say const OCR body. It's going to be equal to response.json. We're going to convert this to JSON, and we're going to console.log basically OCR body. I'm going to name this OCR body, and I'm going to do comma OCR body. Perfect. Let's go back to our application, and we're going to upload a file. Let's see what happens. We are uploading the file, went to the S3. We're waiting for response back from our application. So there it is, the OCR body. It was a promise that we got back, and as you can see, the body has 3 values that we're looking for, and we're going to bind those values to our application. The way we're going to do that, basically, we are going to use this set state. That amount is going to be OCR body The first one is going to be, we know always is going to be the amount, and the second one and the third one. The second one is going to always be our invoice number, and the last one is going to be our date. So I'm going to run this to see what happens. All right, we're going to upload this. We're going to add this value, and we're going to wait for the response to come back. There it is. So we got an error here, and the reason it says it cannot find the value 0. So the reason this is happening is we are receiving an OCR body from the JSON response. We're going to actually add a wait first of all here. We're going to wait until the response comes back. I'm going to redo this process once more. There it is. Now we got the response back. So we have the body, right? So body now has all the 3 values, body 0 and 2 and 3. If we go up to our state, we do have the amount, we do have the invoice, and we do have all the values that we're looking for. One thing we need to add in our basically constructor. First of all, I'm going to add a constructor here. There it is. Here's the constructor. It's going to receive props. We're going to do it just right. And we're going to call super. We're going to pass the props to the super. And of course, we do have the state here. Perfect. Inside the constructor, we do have the state, and we're going to add all these bindings to our application. One of them is going to be handle change, and this handle change, we just need to bind it to the this, otherwise we'll lose the basically control and we'll lose the binding. And we're going to bind it to this. This is going to be that's state. All right, that's perfect. So this is going to be that's set state, and we're going to have to add amount equal to OCR body 0, right? Then I'm going to have this just in different. You're just going to use, you can use only one set state. I'm basically using 3 different one. That's basically wrong. We don't want to update our state outside of the set state variable. All right, but we're actually updating different things. So the second one is actually invoice, and the last one, I guess it's a date. Let's refresh the application. So I'm going to change this to invoice date, and it's going to be invoice date, and what we're going to do, we're going to set the state of invoice date. All right, I'm accessing the third one, which doesn't exist. It's supposed to be 2. All right, so we're going to upload for the last time index 0, 1, and 2, and hopefully we're going to see our application will be binding the values that we received from the API call. There you go. There you have it. This is our application doing OCR on the fly. You can, of course, change this as soon as you upload it. You can change the state. Basically, when the application is loading, you don't have to have that as like processing. This can be empty, right? And then once you upload the file, we can actually say it's analyzing the document. So value that's reading the value, it's called processing. The processing can be, be binded to maybe this state, and it can be, for example, to confirmation, or let's say to message. In the confirmation message, as soon as you upload, we can actually say that's set state. We can set the state of the confirmation to processing, and then when it's done, after that, we can actually go ahead and update that to empty, right? There it is. So we're going to go ahead and upload our invoice once more. It says processing, and then when it's done, it's going to disappear after that. We can go ahead and compile this application and upload it to our S3 bucket and serve the web application. The way we can do that, we can just simply go ahead and sync the application. Let me show you how. We just need to go to our folder, to our application. In this section, I'm going to stop the application. All right, and then what we're going to do, we're going to go to cd app npm run script. We can add this to our JSON file, basically to our package.json, but I'm just going to type it here. It's going to be script space build. All right, our build is done. If you go to the folder, there's a folder called build. Here's your application. And we're just going to go simply sync this folder with our Amazon S3 basically bucket. So the bucket is called React app web app. Let's see how we can sync this file. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to right click in the same folder and get the bash, or you can just simply navigate to this folder in your command prompt, and then you can use S3, Amazon S3, AWS S3 sync, source and destination. The source is current folder, and the destination is going to be S3 : and here's the folder. There it is. So we're going to wait until S3 basically populates all these files, and then we are ready to serve our application. There it is. All the files are here. And what we're going to do now, if you remember in the permission side, we had the course, we had the public bucket basically enable, which people can go ahead and access this bucket. If you go to properties, we enabled static web hosting, and now if I click on this file, I should be able to see my React application. So now my React application is being served, as you can see, from S3 website US West 1 Amazon Web Services. This will be really scalable application since it's being served from S3. We'll be able to go ahead and upload our sample invoices. It says processing. It's going to talk to our backend through API gateway, goes through the Lambda function, talks to S3, and basically uses Amazon Textract OCR service, and it returns a JSON object back to our application. Well, the next step is going to be basically submitting this information to DynamoDB. This is a repetitive section. I do have this application actually working with DynamoDB in my another videos. That's the serverless invoice application. You can just go ahead and watch that video. I'll put the link in the description section.
Alright guys, I hope you liked this video. We just built a real-life OCR, optical character recognition web application using React, Node, Python, and AWS services. So let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer those questions. Download the code, share it with your friends and colleagues so they can learn. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I hope to see you guys soon. Bye.